Al 1 de Mayo.
Hello and welcome to the Pick and Pop Podcast. I am your host, Sam Dusemare Jr. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TheSamD, that's TheeSCMD. Follow along with the show at Pick and Pop Pod on Twitter at Pick N, no and, just the letter N, Pick and Pop Pod. Subscribe and rate 5 stars, nothing less. Tell a friend. Apple, Google Podcast, Spotify, Castbox, Stitcher Radio, all major podcast platforms. Search for The Pick and Pop Podcast, no and, the letter N, The Pick and Pop Podcast. Musical production done by May 1st Music. Support him at soundcloud.com/May1stmusic. After those 2 hours tonight, where do you want to start? I'm very curious as to where everyone in the national media starts off these last 2 hours. You could go with the father angle, which the first episode leads off with. You could go with the 45 and going back to 23. You could go with Space Jam. You could go with the Father's Day series and him on the ground crying, loud sobbing. But you know me, I like to mix the knowledge and the analysis and the breakdowns with some humor. But this episode 7 and 8, for its own different reasons, felt very heavy. Heavy is the word I would describe these last 2 episodes. And intensity is a word that comes to mind. Ferocity is a word that comes to mind. Motivation is a word that comes to mind. But it's, for me, not just a word, but a series of words that just describe Jordan's mindset, mentality at life. And we hear about attacking life and all of that, but no fucks given is what comes to mind when it comes to Mike. That's what comes to my mind, is he literally gave 0 fucks what you thought about how we got there. Now, he gave fucks about what you thought of his public persona, but he gave 0 fucks about what you thought about the mentality he carried about winning and what he had to do, whether it was the work he had to put in, whether it was the way he motivated teammates like Scott Burrell, which we saw on full display, whether it was fighting Steve Kerr, Will Perdue, barking at teammates, getting on Kukoc, it didn't matter. Because as he said, look at the work he's putting in. I've never asked any of my teammates to do anything I wouldn't do or have done to set that example. So you have different types of leadership, right? You have leadership by example. Not do as I say, but do as I do. Then you have leadership that's verbal, which is the reciprocal. Do as I say, not as I do. Michael is combining those 2 metrics. Do as I say and as I do. Like, there's no way around it. There's no tuning Mike out. And if you tuned Mike out, you didn't last on the Bulls roster that long. Look at the vets that came in and came out on that roster, or the youngins that didn't survive. I mean, Scott Burrell only lasted, a year? He didn't last that long. There's guys that came and went. It was a revolving door because, as we have seen through these behind the scenes footage, just practice footage, just locker room footage, just on the bus footage, you know, as he said, like, if you think I'm a tyrant, well, that's because you never won anything. And when I first heard that, I thought of that LeBron quote when LeBron basically called all of us broke a few years ago when they took that L in the finals. And he's like, tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up and I'm still going to be LeBron James. Tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up and be whoever you are. That was a bar, right? Called us brokies. But that Jordan line to me is very similar. You want to call me a tyrant. You want to call me whatever, maniacal. There were tweets tonight that were hitting the timeline where these are people in the media that were covering him back then, or just, people that are just in the game or whatever, were saying that Jordan was a sociopath. He was a psychopath. Like the way he moved, the way that his attitude and his ferocity of how he wanted to motivate not only himself at times with making shit up like we found out tonight, but also just motivating his teammates. It was like a tyrant. And for him to get asked about that and say, well, you can think I'm a tyrant, but that's because you've never won anything. And that sits uneasy with me. I understand it, right? I understand the mindset of, hey, look, bruh, you haven't been where I've been. You ever been to 6 straight finals and won all 6? Never needed a game 7. You haven't done the things that I've done. You haven't accomplished what I've accomplished. So you don't know the work that it takes. So I'm pushing these guys to put in the same work that I put in, and maybe you could get to my level. But that is the mistake. And if you've seen Jordan's moves in his post-career, especially as an executive with Charlotte, that's been his problem. And you saw it a little bit in Washington when he was a Wizard. And with just 2 hours left, I can't see us getting that much about the Wizards ever, Jordan. But that's definitely a thing where in Washington, he tried to will his teammates to be like him. He tried to run the same rhetoric that he was doing in Chicago with the Wizards. Not only was he damn near 40, if not 40, but you're also dealing with a different generation of players that grew up on you. You're not dealing with contemporaries, dealing with people that looked up to you. It's a different mindset. When you're being a tyrant to people who looked up to you, it hits different. They're not driven to please you. They're looking up to you. It's a love me daddy scenario. So when he takes Kwame Brown and he's destroying Kwame Brown daily in practices like he did Scott Burrell. Scott Burrell's a contemporary in terms of age. Kwame Brown was a teenager and probably idolized Jordan. Kwame Brown went into a deep funk based off the tyrant-like tactics that Jordan put on him, like he was a bull from the 90s. So being a tyrant works when you have guys who are trying to get the same goal as you and buy in, and they're contemporaries of yours. When you're dealing with players that are significantly younger than you, and you're being like a tyrant, it's a different mindset. It's a different mentality. It doesn't hit the same. So while that line, he got that line off. I can't lie. He got the line. He got the Bron Brokey type line off. But being that tyrant speaks to a lot of the lack of success he had with the Wizards and as an executive with the Hornets. As the owner, GM, whatever, quasi thing you want to give him, whatever title you want to give him in Charlotte outside of the owner, that's why the Hornets haven't been shit. Because when he comes down, remember he smacked dude, who was it? Was it Malik Monk? He smacked somebody in the back of the head. I forget who it was. He smacked some dude in the back of the head on the Hornets. Imagine your owner coming down, and after you mess up a play, he slaps you in the back of the head. Any other owner does that, he's destroyed and probably getting the Donald Sterling treatment. But Jordan could come down from the owner's box, come down to the court, sit on the bench, and have a player fuck up in front of him and slap him in the back of the head. Tyrant. Do you know the swag you gotta have to have a cigar in one hand and a baseball bat in the other while listening to R&B. That's the thing that it's a different type of swag. It's not putting on. And I think that's where you see the difference from the 90s era, which led into the 2000s, which we have now, where a lot of images are contrived. And even a lot of, quote, candid stuff that dudes post on social media, even that's contrived. We never really get to see people in their element anymore. Even like documentaries now, like everyone's trying to come out with a doc. But that stuff is contrived to a certain extent, right? Jordan is sitting in the locker room after taking an L to BJ and the Hornets. And he's got R&B pumping, which again, if you've been in the locker rooms, I've been in the locker room a few times. I have not heard R&B not one time. And I've been in the locker room, whether it was the home team or the visiting team. R&B is not a thing. But we have Jordan here. It's just fucking crazy. It's crazy. He's sitting there with a stogie and a bat. And he's just getting the grip right, getting some little swings, checking the follow through, all this stuff. And his team just took an L to BJ. BJ and the Hornets just came through to the UC and stole one. BJ's over there screaming, all of that type of stuff. One of these days, I'll tell you about the story about me and BJ. Me, BJ, and my boy Joe Brown from SiriusXM, we had a rap debate off air for about 45 minutes, but that's a whole other thing. One day we'll get there. Dog, we're talking a stogie and a Louisville Slugger. You just took an L to BJ at the crib, and he's over here maxing and relaxing with some R&B. I tried to like play it back and try to catch what song it was. I couldn't really make it out what song it was, but it was some like slow jam R&B, not no mid-tempo or up-tempo. This was Quiet Storm type R&B. This was getting him in a mindset to go kill. That's normally not the type of joints you hear in locker rooms. You don't normally hear Jodeci type, Christopher Williams type. You don't hear that type of music in the locker room. But here he is, the best player in the world, the best player to me ever in the game. And he's got slow jams on with a stogie in one hand and a Louisville Slugger in the other. And then he goes on to talk about how BJ should know better. And I know BJ, he got caught up in the moment, and he even admitted that in the piece. He got caught up in the moment. But the fact that MJ then starts to talk, and then again, I'm telling you, the one fascinating thing that has come out of this to me is the southern drawl of Michael Jeffrey Jordan from Brooklyn. It is just hilarious because when he's talking with that stogie in his mouth, normally you can't make out what someone is saying. Because his delivery is so deliberate, we hear everything. And he's talking shit. It's easy to talk when you're up. Let me hear that talk when it's 0-0. So many gems. This episode, I can't lie. These two episodes, I don't know if they're a good setup for the finale. I don't know how I feel about these two episodes in the chronological order of it. They're well done episodes, but if we're already at the end, it makes me wonder what else we're not seeing. Because I feel as though, like, there's some players that aren't mentioned here. And because of the pandemic that's been going on, like, they're still editing this as you're hearing it. They're still editing the last episode. Allegedly, 9 is done. They're still putting the finishing touches on 10 as you're hearing this. If you're hearing this Monday or whatever, then maybe it's done. If you're hearing this past Monday, then it's probably done. But if you're hearing this tomorrow, they're still working on the finale, bruh. So I'm just trying to figure out, what are we not going to see? Like, what's on the cutting room floor? Are we going to get a director's cut? Because the director, if you've been catching these little recaps that he does, you know, obviously promoting the stuff, and he comes on and recaps the episode with Jalen and Jacoby. He said he's been getting feedback from Mike in the editing process, and he had to put some stuff in. And Jordan's been giving feedback. MJ's been jumping in the Google Doc and been dropping notes on what he thinks. Can you imagine? The director was not going to put the Atlanta game with the game winner. He didn't have that in there. And that's amazing to me because, and even Jordan told him in the note that that's when he felt like he could go back to being 23. Like that's when he felt, when he hit that buzzer beater against Atlanta and then he taps the floor, knocks the floor, which Kobe copied and Rip Hamilton copied as well later. He said that's when he knew he could get back to being himself on the basketball court. This is before the double nickel in the Garden, the Atlanta game where he hit the buzzer beater. So obviously he comes off the Pacer game and the 45 and the I'm back facts and all of that. But it was that Atlanta game where he comes back, he's looking like himself, he's moving like himself, and he hits that buzzer beater. That's when even Jordan admits he felt, okay, I can do this. And the director didn't have that in. He also went on to say that initially the Horace Grant Orlando angle wasn't that heavily in the original cut. I mean, how is that? If you know the arc of the story, how would you have to be told that Horace Grant in Orlando beating Chicago with Jordan wearing the 4-5 and then the 2-3? Thanks, Nick. How could that possibly not be a part of the arc of the story? A dude that he won 3 championships with. A dude that felt that he was underappreciated, not only by management, not only by the media, not only by the fans, but by MJ himself. A dude that possibly snitched on the squad for the majority of the Jordan Rules book by Sam Smith. That dude goes to Orlando, plays Jordan in the playoffs, beats Jordan in the playoffs. Horace Grant is carried off the UC floor once they beat the Bulls and eliminate the Bulls. That wasn't going to be in it? I don't know if the director has admitted this yet. It's almost like 10 hours ain't enough. And they claim it's over 500 hours. 500 hours condensed to 10. How could you do 10 hours coinciding with the arc of Jordan's career and not have the Horace Grant angle in this screenplay, in this layout, in this storyboard? How could you not? Thankfully, Jordan had to remind him. As much as we think Jordan has curated a lot of this doc to keep himself in a certain light, at least he's keeping it a buck when it comes to what basketball parts should be in there, right? I mean, we go from Jordan and his dad. We go from the cocaine circus. We go from talking about the Republicans buy sneakers too stuff and the social justice stuff. Jordan is giving it up in a way that I was not expecting. Y'all finally saw the GP stuff, but I mean, most of y'all saw that clip that surfaced before it got, the cease and desist went through to pull that from the internet. But the Gary Payton stuff, when I first saw that, I laughed my ass off. Like I laughed out loud because I was not expecting that. Because Jordan's talking like we would talk. And because he's Jordan and he was looked up to, we didn't get, I never thought we would get that kind of energy from Mike. I'll keep that a beam with you. I never thought that. I thought we were going to get monotone, pristine Gatorade Mike for this whole doc. Mike's giving it up. You may not agree with everything he's saying. You may not agree with the tactics. You might not even be a Jordan guy. But you can't say he's not being authentic, even at this age. He's still pushing the narrative of, I'm just a basketball player. Even though we've seen guys like LeBron take social causes very seriously and not be afraid to put that out there. Jordan, even in his advanced age, is still out here moving like that, still cares about his public persona. We saw that before the doc drop, that he was concerned about how the public was going to view him. The thing with his father is heartbreaking, right? To be that close with your father, lose your father in that way, and your father becomes basically your road dog. And this is not just when he won the championships. Like, we saw how, that first championship, like, they were already bosom buddies. That father-son bond is crazy. And to have that kind of father-son / best friend bond is even crazier. And to lose your father in the way that Jordan did had to be heartbreaking. And he was only 30 years old. 30 years old, losing your pops. That is, especially if you're that close with him, that is catastrophic. And the gambling stuff being attached to his dad's death and potential mafia angle, like, that was a thing. That was always a thing that was bubbling. That was the thing I remember hearing. That was a rumor. That was a joke. That was stuff said in barbershops or whatever. And as Bob Costa said, there was never really any evidence, like, to co-sign that. There was never any real threat. It was just all speculation. It was all speculative. But then you got your man's Jesse Jackson out here wilding. You got other people. The media was like really trying to insinuate, is there a connection? Is that first retirement really just a suspension? Like, that was a real thing. It makes no sense looking back. It didn't make no sense then in the moment, but it was always like, well, what if? We now know because of the AC thing and then the Slim Booler thing and the book with the other dude. Like, Mike's out here wilding when it comes to gambling. So maybe he did get in over his head. I mean, he's out here taking trips to AC. Like, you could spin the narratives enough. You could spin the storylines that are ancillary enough to make it into a thing. But you had to look at the fact that, this dude wrote a certified check for $57K to Slim Booler. If anything, Mike seems to pay his debts because he's good for it. He's got the bread, right? Like, that's the thing that we've seen in 90s money. Mike was killing. So if he was dropping all this kind of money, if he was gambling all this money, we hear about all of his losses, but imagine the wins. We see how determined he is. I don't think you could survive playing golf that long for money if you were trash, even with Jordan's money. I think there's no way that he could be indebted to the mafia, to whoever, that he had to go take a sabbatical, a secret sabbatical from the NBA for a year and a half. But that was a real thing. People really were trying to float that narrative out there for a very long time. And I was very curious, how were they going to attack that angle, if at all, in these 10 hours? Because that for sure was the thing. The baseball stuff didn't move me too much because there was already a 30 for 30 done on Mike playing baseball. But it just goes to show, when you think about it, 14 years he didn't play baseball. He went straight to AA, which is 2 steps away from Major League Baseball. And he starts out with, a 13-game hitting streak? Now, I'm sure some of those pitches might have been grooved. But 13 games in a row, he starts out getting hits? Nothing but heat, right? Straight fastballs. But then he gets the off-speed stuff, and then shit gets a little funky. But overall, hitting over 200, fresh out the gate. And this is like, again, AA is intermediary in terms of like that's a real level. That's not a ball. That's not rookie ball. AA is like, okay, you could really cut your teeth here. Promise you show here will get you to the show. We'll get you to the major leagues. 14 years removed from swinging the batting, you hit over 200. That's a remarkable feat in itself. To be that tall, again, 6'6". This whole doc is about the arc of Jordan. When you're talking about the arc of Jordan, you have to talk about the fact that as an athlete, as a competitor, hand-eye coordination, skill level, fundamentals, it translated into 2 sports. And the fact that you got credible baseball people like a Tita Francona out here telling you, I think he would have made it. If he would have had 1,500 at-bats, he would have made it. He would have made it to the major leagues. And it's not remarkable. We've seen dudes do this. But to be that level of player, to be arguably the best player that's ever played one sport, to pick up another sport you haven't figured out or haven't dealt with for 14 years, there's no comparison to that. It's not Bo, because he played both during the same time. It's not Deion, played both during the same time. I mean, Dave Winfield comes to mind. He was drafted by he was drafted by 3 sports, right? Dave Winfield was drafted in baseball, football, and basketball, I believe. But he never played any of them. Played baseball. But in terms of picking up a bat after 14 years and facing AA level pitching and hitting over 200 in a little over a year, that shit's amazing. These 2 episodes to me focused on mentality, mindset, motivation, and that Orlando loss marks the second time that Jordan took a playoff loss and decided, I need to fix my body. Because we saw how he got beat up against Detroit and he finally decided, nope, I got to get stronger. I got to get, I got to lift weights. And we saw how that added 10 to 15 pounds significantly of muscle, changed his game and made him better. So now after making his body over into a baseball player body, to then take that L, to have Nick Anderson, to not have the wind and the stamina to play NBA level basketball, I got to go back in the lab again and now fix my body again into basketball shape. I don't know how many dudes are built like that. It seems simple, right? Train your body for basketball. Okay, we're going to go play baseball. Okay, we're going to train our body for baseball. Oh, we're going back to basketball. Okay, just go train your body back. That's not easy. Those are not easy transitions. There's so much here. Do any of y'all think that the baseball thing was purely a grieving thing? Like, I thought that initially. And even though we hear Jordan say, well, I was going to go the year before. I was going to dip and retire the year before, but he had Barcelona and then he wanted to win 3 in a row. It seemed way easier to do it after the death of his pops. It seemed to fit the time to just go away. And nothing beats hitting the beaten path than going to play AA baseball, than going into the minor league baseball system where you're playing in small towns night after night. You're taking long bus trips. You're in remote cities, if that, remote towns mostly. Like, if you want to get away, which as we've talked about here, and especially during the Mamba episode, when Mamba passed, was people grieve differently. You can emotionally try to get through it by fucking your way through it or through relationships. You can work your way through it in grieving in the sense of you're going to immerse yourself into your work to try to block out what just happened. Or you could sit and dwell in it and live in it. All 3 have their pros and cons. All 3 have their pros and cons. But when it comes to Jordan, I think Jordan took I'm just going to work through it. I'm going to work through it. I'm going to block everything out and just immerse myself into this baseball thing and get away and be in these small towns, remote towns, and get back to the essence of what me and my dad first love was, which was baseball. So even though he's ignoring it, he still in some way is connected to the person that he's grieving by playing baseball. The emotions that came out when he came back and they won that chip and it was on Father's Day and he's on the ground, hearing that audio, like we've seen that photo, right? We've seen the still of Jordan clutching the basketball face down in the locker room. But hearing him openly bawl out, sobbing uncontrollably on the floor, whew, they say a picture speaks 1,000 words, and you see that photo and he's face down and it's poignant, right? But the video, seeing that video, it was no words. It was speechless because there's no words for that. And we've seen it in these little interviews where he gets emotional. And at the Kobe Memorial, we saw Jordan get emotional. We saw at the Hall of Fame where we got the Jordan meme, the Jordan crying meme. Jordan gets emotional. But it's only certain things. You have to hit certain things for him to get emotional. And obviously, Father's Day, how close he was with his father, him not wanting to play basketball again, mainly because he didn't want to play without his father being able to watch him play. Coming back through all of that, yeah, that was a speechless moment. Scotty takes another hit. Scotty keeps taking hits, man. In Scotty's career, I remember when I did the while we were waiting for this doc to drop, I did fave players from the 90s, and I picked 93, 94 Scottie Pippen. That was Afro Pippen. But Afro Pippen also had that moment, that Kukoc moment, the sitting bull moment. What if Kukoc misses that shot? They're already down 2-0 to the Knicks. At the crib, game 3, tight game on the line. You decide to sit out because the play's not run for you. Kukoc misses that shot. They go down 3-0. What happens? I mean, Scotty was already killed. I mean, what's worse? Kukoc makes the shot, proving that you were wrong for sitting, or Kukoc misses the shot. We don't know what would have happened if you would have took the shot, but yet and still your team's down 3-0. What would have been the worst outcome for Scotty? And Scotty's career has been put under such a microscope because of this doc. I mean, there's been players that have said, and I heard this in an interview, that's from an anonymous Bulls player, which is, who knows who this could be. What up, Horace? Now, Jordan was so good, he put 2 people in the Hall of Fame, himself and Scotty. But that's true. That goes to the motivation thing. And you saw it when Scotty had to do with the Pistons. Scotty wasn't built like that. He wasn't built to take that punishment. He didn't have that will, that determination. Scotty was one of those dudes that, I won't say happy to be there, but he's very close to that. He developed a mindset akin to Jordan by being around Jordan. He didn't achieve that all on his own. So now Jordan leaves. Now, obviously, Jordan's there in the Bulls in that scenario. Pippen know who getting the ball. But because Jordan's gone, he assumes, well, I'm now the de facto guy. Even though the triangle is running and everyone's touching the ball and everybody's getting more shots and Kukoc has hit other game winners prior in that particular season, none of that mattered to Scotty. In that moment, he felt, I'm the alpha dog. But the alpha dog didn't act like an alpha dog by sitting on the bench with 1.8 left. So just imagine, just like that, we talked on the last episode about what if Horace doesn't get shook against Phoenix and tries to get the game time layup instead of kicking it out to Paxson. That's a what if. This is a what if. What if Kukoc misses that shot? Would Pippen's legacy be worse or better today if that happens? If the Bulls lose that game, Kukoc misses the shot, Bulls go down 3-0, maybe get swept by the Knicks. How does that hit Pippen's legacy? He's got some stains. I mean, that migraine game is still a thing, as we've talked about. He's got the 1.8. He was on that Portland team that blew that lead to the Lake Show. Or was it up 17 in the fourth quarter? They blew that lead to the Lake Show. Pippen's got some real smudges on his resume. A lot of what ifs still. Basketball is such a what if sport. What if this shot goes in? What if that turnover? Like, what if that Jordan-Nick Anderson play, you see Jordan look once to see where Nick was once he got past him. Once, because Nick reached the first time, didn't get the ball. So Jordan gets by him. He gave one quick look back to see if he's there, and now he's into, okay, now what? Not thinking that Nick was still coming. Mike didn't take a second look back. If he would have took a second look back, he would have realized that Nick was still coming, and then he could have adjusted. What if? What if Jordan looks back, sees Nick coming, and adjusts? Does that series change? Do the Bulls win that series? Then what's the narrative? LaBradford Smith. That was a funny-ass story, though. That was a funny-ass story. LaBradford Smith thing reminded me of Shaq. Remember Shaq came into the league and had this hatred for David Robinson? Remember that was a thing? Like, Shaq spun the story that when he was coming up and he was living in San Antonio, he went to some camp and wanted to, shake David Robinson's hand or wanted to get an autograph or something from David Robinson. And David Robinson played him didn't give him what he wanted, and so he's carried that anger ever since then, and that motivated him. Only to find out, only after his career was done, and only in his biography that he did with Jackie McMullen, that, oh, he made it up. He never had an issue with David Robinson. He never got shunned by David Robinson. He just needed to give himself that extra little oomph to like motivate himself to get better. And that's what LeBradford Smith look, Jordan did this a lot. Jordan made up stuff a lot. I'm a little surprised they haven't gone more into that, because there's more stories of Jordan lying about being slighted. That's something I'm trying to think of. I don't think I've ever lied about something to motivate myself. I just don't know what position I'm going to have to be in to make something up to motivate myself. So imagine you get to that point. Let's take Jordan out of it because we know how maniacal he is. Shaq, who's been called into question for, I won't call him lazy. That man's too large for me to call him lazy. But other people have questioned his work ethic, his consistency, his motivation to play the game of basketball. And this dude had to make something up so outlandishly, because David Robinson is one of the most stoic, nice guys. Like, he's just genuinely nice. Navy man, military academy, carries that kind of energy onto the court, professionalism, all of that stuff, pristine shape. Like, David Robinson, he's not Mr. Perfect, or at least in the sense of he's not the Kurt Hennig version of Mr. Perfect, chewing the gum and spitting it out and catching it. Like, he's not any of that. But he's Mr. Perfect of a different kind, of the pristine kind. To make up that dude dissed you or shunned you or whatever, like, that's just so unbelievable. That's why that story never made sense. The only thing, it was believable because Shaq lived in San Antonio when he was in high school. So it's like, oh, okay, maybe they did cross paths, but really? David Robinson played you? Like, that doesn't make sense. And then remember, they played that All-Star game in San Antonio, and Shaq went out his way to try to dunk on David Robinson every chance he got. Yeah, motivation is weird. I've never experienced that kind of motivation. But I guess if you're at the top level, if you're at this elite level and you want to find a way to go higher, because, you know, as Jordan said in the piece, you know, winning has a price. Leadership has a price. You know, the Steve Kerr thing is wild, right? He gets a black eye from Jordan, and Jordan respects him for getting that black eye. That's, again, this warped, again, these dudes ain't normal. When it comes to being a, quote, tyrant or a sociopath or a psychopath, or however you want to categorize Mike, or just anyone that has a kind of mentality, that ferocity, it's weird. Kerr finally decides to stand up to Mike, unlike Scott Burrell, and gets a black eye for it. And Jordan says, I respect that man now. Kerr all of 6'2", if that. 6'2", 6'3", probably officially, but who knows what the real height is. But Jordan's 6'6", gets a black eye from Jordan. And Jordan has to call the facility to get your phone number. If Jordan was around today, could Jordan still get that off? Jordan's not in the group chat, right? I can't see Jordan in the group chat. Even current day Jordan. Let's not even put Jordan in this era. Current day Jordan, is he in any group chats? I don't even think he's in the group chat with his kids. I just don't think Mike is giving it up like that on a cell phone. I just can't see it. Is Mike in the group chat? Let me know. Hey, Knick fans, understand something real quick. I know I spoke on Pippen and the cool coach thing in the 1.8. Understand that it still took y'all 7 games to beat that Bulls team. I want y'all to let that sink in. No Jordan. And it still took y'all 7 games. And when y'all beat the Bulls in 7 games, you saw Patrick with his hands up like he finally accomplished something. Dog, if you don't get the fuck out, yo, it took you 7 games to beat Pete Myers. 7 games. 7 games to beat Pete Myers. Jordan over there is shagging fly balls for the Birmingham Barons, and it still take you 7 games? Next tape. So what do y'all want to see in this finale? I mean, we're leading up to Pacers Bulls. I'm assuming that's what they'll lead off with. Now I'm back to the masses. I'm back being regular. I do not know what's going to happen in this finale, especially since they literally haven't even finished the actual finale. But the problem is that we're going to get a lot of Reggie. I know we're going to get a lot of Reggie. And Reggie just be lying, bruh. Like, Reggie be lying. I don't know what Reggie's going to say. And that's how you know the epitome of a real liar is that you literally don't know what could come out of his mouth. But whatever it is probably going to be a lie. Reggie really feels he's in the same class as Jordan. Not in the sense of being the best player ever, but he really feels like he pushed Jordan. He made Jordan work. The way that GP talked about what he coulda, shoulda, woulda been able to do on Jordan, yo, Reggie gonna give that same energy, if not more, in this finale. And I'm not here for it because Reggie's a fraud. Reggie's a fraud as a player. Reggie should not be in the Hall of Fame. Y'all know how I feel about Reggie. Hall of Fame moments, not Hall of Fame player. You know, it's a thing that I thought of and put out there, and it's Reggie's just not that dude. I mean, remember when he lied about Kobe? He lied on Kobe, dog. He lied on Kobe. Because, again, seeing how Kobe gave it up in this doc about MJ, now when you go back and listen to what Reggie claimed Kobe said to him on the phone in regards to Jordan, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. You remember what Reggie said? Reggie said, and the clip was floating around on the timeline, or at least the last part of the clip, but the full thing I remember. Reggie had the nerve to sit on the Staples floor at center court and say that him and Kobe were on the phone talking about Jordan. Kobe wanted to know what it was to play against Mike and doing some reconnaissance on, you know, what Jordan's about, the work that he puts in, this, that, and the third, right? Reggie, for some reason, calls Jordan the Black Cat. It's a thing. I don't know the origin of it. And it's Reggie, so who even knows if it's truthful or not? So he calls Jordan the Black Cat. So he's like, yeah, the Black Cat does this. He does this. The refs call this. So we game plan for the Black Cat like this, like that, whatever. So as the conversation goes along, apparently towards the end of the conversation, Kobe tells Reggie, now here's what you have to imagine. Do you think Kobe really said these words? You know, Reggie, you're going to call me the Caramel Cat. What the fuck, Reggie? Why can you imagine? Do you really think Vino, Mamba, really told Reggie, you gonna call me Caramel Cat? Ain't no way in hell that happened, bruh. It's just, and if you did the clip that popped on the timeline tonight that reminded me of the full story was, you gotta look at D Wade's face. If you pull that clip up, Reggie grabs D Wade's arm because D Wade gave him a look like, yo, what the fuck are you talking about right now? And Reggie grabs that arm like, yo, it's such a moment. Look, I read body language. That's my thing. One of my favorite shows of all time was his show called Lie to Me. Tim Roth. It was on Fox. It was a great show, but it taught you indirectly or sometimes directly how to read body language, how to read ticks, people's ticks, that you could catch them when they're being deceptive, or different emotions of what body language relates to, right? So Reggie grabs D Wade's arm, grabs his wrist, and you could tell he's squeezing that shit like, yo, just let me let me get this line off. Let me get this lie off on national TV. Because D Wade shot him a look like, yo, bruh, really? And Reggie grabbed that arm like, yo, that forceful, let me get it off. They made me sit here in center court. Let me get this lie off. And bruh, if Reggie lies to us over these next 2 hours, I'm going to have a problem. Reggie going to make up some shit like him and Mike was this, him and Mike was that, and I felt like it was me versus him for best in the world. Reggie is going to spin a tale crazy over these next 2 hours. And I don't know what we're going to do. We all going to find out together as a family. But I'm telling you right now, if he could lie to us at Staples Center, sit in center court after Mamba passes, I don't know how he gonna give it up on this Jordan doc. What kind of lie is Reggie going to give us? That's going to be a subplot to these last 2 hours. You know, Amar Rashad tweeted tonight saying that Gary Payton, GP, the glove, the one that talked all that shit, saying if they would have put me on Mike, we would have. All right. Amar Rashad tweeted out tonight that GP asked for Mike's shoes after game 1, and that Jordan told him he knew the series was in the bag after that. GP after game 1? Running up on Mike for autograph or for some kicks, for some shoes? Come on, GP. Keep the same energy. You can't be the same dude like, yo, if they would have put me on him, it would have been da-da-da. Nah, and then go run behind him looking for some sneakers after the first game? GP is one of those ones. He's a great quote. Good dude. A little shaky in the light. This episode. 2 hours left. I'm curious as to what y'all want to see. I would like to see Bison Dele, just a mention. Again, I know this is supposed to be the arc of Jordan's career coinciding with the last year of the Bulls, but the story of Bison Dele is so interesting. I don't know why we can't get at least a couple of minutes on that. He was on the chip the year before, so he was not part of the Last Dance team. And the whole incident with Bison Dele disappearing literally off the face of the earth, never to be found ever again. Like, that's a 6'9" dude disappeared off this earth, and no one knows what happened. The Bison Dele story needs to be told by someone. This dude, this 6'9" dude, literally went out to sea and was never seen again. Bison Dele has not been mentioned. No love for my guy, Dickie Simpkins. There's some dudes from that second three-peat that have not been, like, I guess either they weren't interviewed or maybe they were interviewed and the footage just isn't being used. But Jason Caffey, who I've taken to task on this pod during this Last Dance, who was, I think, the second three-peats version of Bill Cartwright. Dickie Simpkins hasn't gotten any love. You know, no Stacey King from the first three-peat, no Scott Williams from the first three-peat. Cliff Livingston, I hope he's okay somewhere. I know he's battled some demons. There's some dudes that haven't been seen or interviewed for this, and I don't know if that's a Jordan thing because he's got creative control. You think if they interviewed Jason Caffey, he popped up on that screen, Jordan said, what the hell is Jason Caffey doing in my 10-hour doc? But I'm just saying, like, there's some dudes that as a former Bulls fan that was a Bulls fan during that era, like, I remember those rosters. Like Randy Brown shared that moment with Jordan when he grabbed the ball. Like, it was a weird dynamic, right? Because that Father's Day thing happens. They beat the Sonics. They get the championship. They're at home. Jordan grabs the ball, but Randy Brown was trying to grab the ball too. And they're both holding on to the ball on the court, and they're both on the floor kind of holding on to the ball. Like, was there an indirect tug of war over the rock? Like, did Randy Brown really think he was going to get that rock? Like, I would have interviewed Randy Brown just to find that out. What was going through your mind when you're on the ground holding on to the ball and Jordan's got the ball on the ground? Like, was there any scenario where you thought you would come out of that with the ball? I can't think of any. Ugh, this doc. There has to be a director's cut. I know Netflix is part of this somehow. Their name is plastered all over this thing. So I'm assuming the 10 hours will eventually get to Netflix. I hope we get the bonus footage too at some point in the very near future, because there's got to be more stuff than this. 500 hours trimmed down to 10. You can't tell me this is the 10 best. Like, I'm sure you could let someone else go in there with that 500 and you could get a whole nother doc. A whole nother 10-hour doc off that footage. But we're going to see. We know Reggie going to be lying next Sunday. We know how this movie ends. We should get some Karl Malone stuff, although, ooh. Is Karl Malone going to be interviewed? You kind of have to, right? And if you interview Karl Malone, are we going to talk about Karl Malone off the court? We going to talk about that? We're going to talk about Karl Malone and Kobe? And what really happened? You notice Karl Malone wasn't at that memorial. Wasn't no seat held for him. And you could do your Googles about Karl Malone and the ages of his children. And if you do math, you can see some things about Karl Malone and how he was moving. So if they interview Karl Malone, they gonna get that backstory? Or they gonna keep it PG? Oof. Jerry Sloan is another one. He's an interesting dude. The fact that as a player, he played for the Bulls, had his number retired by the Bulls. Being the coach of Utah, losing back-to-back finals to Chicago. Like, that's a storyline. That's a subplot. 2 hours is not a long time, bruh. I mean, if you take out the commercials, it's like 40-something minutes, 44, 43 minutes. That's not a lot of time. Because you got to talk about both Utah series. Like, it all, like, the chronological stuff is all working to, are they going to do 1 hour each? 1 hour the first Utah series, 1 hour the second Utah series in the aftermath? Or do you combine the two Utah series into the 9th hour, the first hour on Sunday? And then that second hour is kind of like a review. You could do a little post Bulls in terms of the breakup, the actual breakup, the breakdown of the breakup. And then kind of put a bow on it and talk about the legacy stuff. Or do you stretch out each series? Because both Utah series were close. They both ended in 6 games, but I mean, yeah. Bulls were in trouble in different moments in each series. In trouble. No real danger of losing, but we're in trouble. Do you stretch that out? Or do you just condense it into 1 hour so that last hour you can get into, maybe then we get Phil airing out Jerry Krause? Maybe. It doesn't seem like we're going to get that based off the first 8. Oh, it's a lot. It's just, look, it's 500 hours, man. It's 500 hours condensed into 10, and I don't know if we're going to get a bomb finale. There's a lot of ways you can do the finale. Byron Russell's got to be interviewed, right? Got to talk to him about the push-off. So if they do Malone, are we going to get the real talk of Malone? Stockton was supposed to be interviewed, but that was scheduled right as the quarantine lockdown stuff happened. So I don't know if they were able to do that. Maybe they got Stockton over Zoom and going to use the audio or something. So maybe no mailman for publicity reasons. Maybe no Stockton because of the Rona. You should get Jerry Sloan. You should get Byron Russell. I don't know who else you get from Utah. I don't know who else you would want. You don't want Ostertag. Yeah, I don't know who else you get from Utah. I don't know if we're going to get Mailman, but if we do, you got to give the real backstory on Mailman. Not sure if you get in Stockton. You'll probably get Sloan. You should get Byron Russell. And then you're going to get the breakup, the breakdown, the end of The Last Dance. I got to get out of it because Reggie's already pissed me off and I ain't even hear the lie. But I know it's happened. It's edited. It's in that shit. I know Reggie lied. All right, I'm out. You know what it is. Appreciate y'all listening. Go to thesamd.com. Go to YouTube. I did the trash narratives on the Chicago Bears. Y'all know how I give up on the trash narratives, so check for that on YouTube. That one got some traction. So yeah, there should be a new trash narratives coming soon. So check for that. May do something special with the last recap pod of The Last Dance, maybe episodes 9 and 10. Maybe I'll do a little video podcast for y'all, maybe put it out. We get the audio version here, or you can go to YouTube, trying to figure out the logistics of that, but we'll see how that goes. So stay linked with me on Twitter, TheSamD on Twitter and IG. And I'll make sure to let y'all know if I do that video. But either way, say subscribe here, subscribe on YouTube if you can as well. I appreciate all the feedback. I appreciate all the support. Pick Up Our Podcast. I'm out.